Hello, everybody, and welcome to E-Train Talks. I'm your host, E-Train, and today is a pretty special day. It's always a special day, but today I'm doing an interview. I am interviewing an interviewee, and it's one that I've been looking forward to for a long time now. My guest is a multi-award-winning author of countless books that have inspired readers of all ages. She has a writing career of over 2 decades and has touched the hearts of readers of all ages. Not to mention her books have been transformed into a major motion picture and has been made for a Nickelodeon movie. So, if you have yet to figure it out by the name on Zoom, I'm sitting across virtually from the very talented author Wendelin Van Draanen. Thank you so much for being here today, Wendelin. I'm so honored that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for getting my name right. You have done your homework.
I have. I've done my research, and I'm so honored to have you. And when I first started preparing for our talk, I was just blown away by everything you've done. You've written so many books, and you've had a lot published. And I mean, you're just kind of being you and writing stories that are close to your heart. And I'm so excited that you're here. And I wanted to start off our interview with a question about a book I have right here of yours called The Peach Rebellion.
Oh
Hope
my.
everybody can
Okay.
see it. So
All
I was
right.
so grateful for the wonderful book mail you sent me. And when I dove into your middle grade story, The Peach Rebellion, I was so captivated. Anyone who's been following my journey knows I'm a huge historical fiction fan. I haven't really come across many books set in or around the Great Depression. So it was really great getting the chance to explore this time period in a story. But this book offers more than just a history lesson. The Peach Rebellion is a dual perspective coming of age story that features themes of friendship, class systems, social injustices, heartbreak, healing, and so much more. A lot of themes. And not all authors set out or accomplish crafting such a layered and heartfelt historical fiction tale. So, can you please share a bit about the Peach Rebellion and why you chose to write a story that visits the Depression and the World War II sort of era?
It's kind of funny how I come into a book, and sometimes I'll start with wanting to know one thing, and I wind up finding out other things, which then give me a spark for an idea for a story that then kind of consumes me. So in this instance, you and I are both in California, and the
Right.
Central Valley. I live on the coast of California, and then the Central Valley is that kind of where 50% of the fruits, nuts, and vegetables of the United States are grown. And my husband's family lived there originally. So after so I wanted to get to know my mother-in-law in a way that was on beyond kind of her role after I met her. Like, she's a terrific mother-in-law, she's a terrific grandmother to our kids. She's just this wonderful person, but I didn't really know anything about her past. And I knew she had worked in the cutting sheds in the Central Valley when way before there was air conditioning in those situations, and it was like summer work. It was rough, and so I just wanted her to talk to me more about her and her influences in life. And she had absolutely no interest in revisiting that time of her life, but I had done my research too, because I felt like you want to come in with some knowledge. Um, so my mother-in-law wasn't interested in talking. But I had discovered some things that as a Californian, I hadn't really paid attention to in school because um, yeah, history also, had never had a history teacher that made the subject come alive.
Right.
So when they talked about the Great Depression, and when they talked about uh, the migration from Oklahoma and the Dust Bowl, what's the Dust Bowl have to do with California when you're living on the coast, you know? So it didn't really connect with me at all at that age. But now all of a sudden I was more invested in it. Like, I knew somebody who had lived not during that era. She's younger than that, but in that situation, and how that had caused the Central Valley of California to evolve. I'm sorry, I'm going on way too long. The point being, I started doing all this research about it, and I had this epiphany um, about a peach tree, and and how a peach tree manages to take the earth and the air and the sun and the soil and well, yeah, water, and it puts them all together, and it creates this wonderful sweet thing called a peach. And and in our society, so fractured, so different. But when you compare water and fire, or water and earth, or just any of the elements, they're different. But when you can combine the differences in our society of people, and they work together, they can create a really sweet society. So the whole theme of it became coming together with our differences to create a sweeter society. But the original, impetus for looking up about the Central Valley of California came from wanting to know my mother-in-law better.
Right.
So I warned you, I might, like, you've got to stop me if I start going off too far. And that was not direct enough of an answer. But there you
It's
go.
okay.
It's hard. That book you're right, it has a lot of themes, and it did consume me for a number of years. And putting that all together in a way that was both readable and kind of interesting without feeling like it's a history lesson, where it's a coming of age story, like you said. And the reader feels the impact of that time without feeling like they're being lectured.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is a fantastic answer. And as somebody who, lives in Sacramento, north of the Central Valley, I mean, the impact that the Central Valley has on not just my personal community, not just in California itself, but around the world, it's just it's a story that needs to be told, especially in a historical time period like you set your book in. And speaking of historical time periods in your books, one of your most famous stories, Flipped, was actually turned into a movie out in 2010, the year I was born, actually. So I guess it's kind of fate that we're talking today. And it was even directed by Rob Reiner. Side note, my mom got super excited when she found out I was interviewing the author behind Flipped, because she'd read the book, and then she had me, we together watched the movie right away. And as I discovered, Flipped is a truly meaningful, truly deep, truly just, I mean, I felt all the feels. It's just that kind of story. So what do you think makes the relationship between Bryce and Julie so timeless and relatable?
Well, what's interesting is I wrote this story because I had a crush on a boy who, when I was a kid, who didn't like me back. And then as I got older and I became a teacher, I saw that the students in my classroom were doing the same thing. It's like you crush on somebody, but you don't really know much about them.
Right.
Um, but I think all of us have experienced that where we've had somebody that we really cared for in an emotional way who then didn't like us back. But the point being, you need to know the person on the inside, not just how cute you think they are on the outside. And that goes for both, the boy and the girl. So in the beginning, Julie has this enormous crush, this long-lasting crush on
Right.
Bryce. Bryce thinks she's completely annoying. But then as they get older, Bryce starts to see that this girl stands up for what she believes in, and she's got a backbone, where
Right.
a lot of other people just kind of they don't think about things or they don't care about things. And all of a sudden he starts to see Julie in a different way, just when she realizes that this boy she's had this crush on all these years is not worthy of her affections. So
Right. Yeah. I think it's so timeless because I mean, even as somebody who's I guess kind of talking about this book in a way like, oh, this is a story, it's so real. The emotions that are felt are real. I've experienced them. And I think that one of the most impactful ways, like this, one of the ways that this story kind of hits you right in the heart, makes you feel everything, is the fact that it is a multiple point of view story with alternating perspectives. And I actually think that's called multi-perspectivity. That is a mouthful, but it's a word. And I just love getting to know the characters' thoughts and inner personalities, because it's not just about the words spoken, the dialogue between them. It's what they think and how they feel and how it all changes throughout the book. So
right.
do you enjoy writing from multiple narratives and multiple perspectives?
Well, that was the first time I tried it.
Oh, wow.
And what was interesting to me is I was totally on Team Julie when I started, of course. But then I would write in the voice of Bryce. And mind you, I've been surrounded my whole life by boys and men. So I've got
Yeah.
two brothers, a husband, I have two sons. So boys are a thing in my life. And um, and so I felt like I had the voice, okay, and also, school teacher, so
Right.
I have a lot of boys in my classroom, so I felt like I clicked onto the voice pretty quickly. Um, but when I started writing in that voice, in his perspective, I all of a sudden started to see Julie in a different light.
Mm,
And I think that's what's so interesting about this book is that it's the same story told from two different points of view in alternating chapters. So she tells her side of something and he tells his side. And to see the difference in how they view each other and the world is really kind of eye-opening. And again, we come back to our own society,
right.
how people see kind of the same situation in completely different ways, and they have emotional reactions in completely different ways. And I
Mhm.
just think that finding a way to see the other person's point of view is a really valuable thing for everybody. And the sooner that you're able to learn to do that, the better things will be in your life.
Right. That's really insightful. And I think um, the connection between Bryce and Julie that was created, I think it really took the two characters kind of not necessarily, I guess, looking at each other in terms of looks, but looking at each other in terms of, I guess, identity and how they look at the world, how they look at each other. And I think the grandfather of Bryce, his way of bridging the two families, that really allowed Julie and Bryce to kind of understand each other on a deeper level. And I think. Um, as the characters matured and as I guess we all mature in real life, that's really, I guess, the key step. If you have this long-lasting sort of crush, growing to understand, I guess, the deep emotions that the other people feel. And you need that sort of bridge because we're grown up, we're raised by what we hear. And if you hear different perspectives, then you can have a better opportunity to grow to understand and appreciate other people more.
Right, exactly. And so what Bryce's father was saying to him was one thing.
Right,
And when Bryce and his grandfather would talk, it would be a cautionary, because he didn't want to overstep his role there in the family, but he would seed thoughts of thinking about Julie differently
right.
than the father who, viewed them as being sort of the scourge of the neighborhood.
Hmm. Absolutely. And one question that I have for you, from an author standpoint, what has been the most surprising and rewarding part of your writing journey? So I guess like maybe they could kind of be intertwined, or they could be completely separate answers. But what's the most surprising and rewarding part of your journey so far?
So when I first I didn't know anything about publishing when I first got published. And I didn't know that foreign markets will take books that are popular in the United States and translate them into their languages. And that is both, that is the most awesome thing. I mean, I've seen my books in Japanese and some of my books are really big in China. I just find it to be just this wonderful kind of world binding where I get mail from people from all over the world to tell me what my book meant to them. And I just feel like if we could all just talk to each other, we would all, we would all get along because just the heartfelt, like the book Flip, for example, is a story that has gotten me email from all over the place and actual letters too. And I just cry sometimes when I read them because they're so touching, just what this meant and how important this book is to them. So, which is because when I wrote the book, I think it's when I wrote Flipped. Okay, we're talking about Flipped at the moment.
Right.
When I wrote Flipped, I think it's very important for a book to be accessible to its readership. I think it's also very important for it to have humor and have a lightness to it and to read through it quickly so that I just think there are elements to a story that will make someone continue to read it. And if you can incorporate those with deeper themes, then you're both giving them a source of enjoyment in the reading, but also you're giving them food for thought. And
Right.
and so when Flip first came out and people would say, "Oh, I read that. That was cute." I just want to slap them. I'm like, it's way more than cute. Just because it has an
Exactly.
upside down chick on the cover doesn't mean that it doesn't have substance to it. So,
Exactly.
so then when I get letters like that where people really do understand this book and the depth of this book, that's very satisfying. So I guess surprising that satisfying is just it's all kind of the global effect that your little thoughts that you put on paper could have on a global scale is just, I can't even put it into words. It's so great.
Yeah, that is an amazing answer. And I think moving a little bit towards outside of writing, your past career, you share on your website, you share online that when you were a kid, your favorite subject was not English or language arts, but it was math.
Yeah.
And language arts is actually your least liked subject. So hearing an author say that, that's really interesting. So I'm curious to know that sort of backstory, why you weren't a big fan of the language arts you were learning. And as a math teacher, I mean, what kind of prompted you to start writing in the first place?
Oh no, this we need 2 hours for this, but I will try to summarize it. So there's a multifaceted question you've asked me. So
Right,
um, language arts not my favorite subject because it's basically not quantifiable. You have you if you do a math problem, you can follow the steps, you can find your error. It's
right.
there it is. It's right or it's wrong, and you can backtrack to where you made a mistake if you got it wrong.
Hmm.
So I could get A plus super dupers in math, right? And I'm the daughter of immigrants, so grades were important.
Right,
Doing well in school was important.
absolutely.
And the whole language arts, you do an essay, you're never going to get that A plus smiley super duper, you did great, no marks. You're going to get little red marks all over your
Right.
pages, and then they're going to tell you to redo it. And it's like I just had trouble breaking the code.
Mm,
And it was frustrating because to me it seemed like it was very subjective. And 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 I really liked math because it wasn't.
right. Yeah,
So there was a B part. Oh yes,
yeah.
how I came to writing. So how did that happen? Oh well, um, yeah, that was a swerve in the road. Bad stuff happened to my family,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to get into that. But let's just say it was devastating financially, emotionally. It was lousy. It was a lousy, lousy time.
Mhm.
And I didn't know how to deal with all the anger I had toward, there were bad guys. I didn't know
Right,
how to deal with all the anger I had toward the bad guys or the ongoing repercussions of what had happened financially and emotionally. And and so I started journaling about it because they say journaling helps. Well, it did not help. It just made me madder. And um and then like one night, journaling away, I'm ripping at the paper with my pen and I decide that, well, what would I do if I could catch the bad guy? And so I started fantasizing. I started
Mm,
writing fiction, and fiction was so much more fun than the real world because I could fantasize about catching this guy and then, taking him to the police. But then I realized, oh, wait, no, I don't have to take him directly to the police. I could torture him a little first because he's not actually real. He's a character.
right.
So the whole like good guy, bad guy thing, I really loved reading when I was a kid. I loved mysteries when I was a kid. And I loved danger and adventure and all those things in a story. And so that kind of came out and that's what started me writing. And I started writing because I really, really badly needed therapy, but therapy wasn't a thing for our family. We didn't do therapy. So I started writing and I just I look back on that and how amazing it is that that slowly over time transformed into this wonderful life that I have now. So the silver linings.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
A lot of people think about books as escapes when you read them, but sometimes when you write books, like you said, it can be an escape in its own right because you're actually getting into the story, you're imagining it in your head. And whether you're catching a bad guy or you're writing about somebody flying to Mars, anything
Yeah.
fiction related, you feel like you're a part of it. And I think it's important, as you said, to think about the author sort of point of view. Because I know a lot of kids, they might think of authors as robots. They're not real, they're just names on the covers. But getting to know you and getting to know authors like you, it's so important. Book writing is just as important to writers as reading is to readers.
I think that if I had met a writer when I was, in school, at any point in school, I would have looked at it completely differently. But our schools didn't bring authors in for author day or anything like that. And to me, authors were just, like you said, they were just like a name on the cover, or I figured they were old, very old, or very dead. I didn't picture them as people at all. And and if I liked their character, I then I liked them. But if you were to ask me what the name of an author from a book I read when I wouldn't be able to tell you. And so when people don't know my name, I'm like, that's fine. If you know my characters, if they've had an impact on you, that's all that matters to me. I get that.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And one of my favorite books of yours that I have right here, it's kind of tucked in between. There it is. Confessions of a Serial Kisser. And the main character, Evangeline, to sum it up, she is inspired to search for the perfect kiss, the crimson kiss, from the boys at her school. And her inspiration comes from a romance book she dug up in her mom's closet. So did this book idea come from any stories you'd previously read, or I guess possibly a real life experience in your life?
Yeah. You're trying to get me to confess my kissing experience. I am not going there, but I will tell you that so with Flipped, the ending, I love the ending of Flipped. It's hopeful. It's like I think it's realistic too. These kids are in middle school, so I think it's a realistic ending. It's hopeful, it's happy. It just makes you feel like life is ahead for them. Okay, so I got a boatload of fan mail from people saying, "You left me hanging." Which, I get their point because the book starts out with, that Bryce Lasky running around with my first kiss. And
Right.
then there isn't a kiss. And so
Mm,
yeah,
yeah.
I would explain in my responses to, because I did that, just responded to all the mail that I got. And and I would explain my reasons and how I would want them to put themselves in Bryce or Julie's shoes and to think about what they want for their own lives and to have their lives be the happily ever after. That if I were to tie it all up with a whole bunch of bows, then then they didn't have to think about it anymore. And really the goal of it is to think about it in relation to your own life and your own happiness. So, but I got so much mail. And then I started just joking around. I said, I should write a book that's all about kissing. And my editor really liked the title. She really liked the idea. And so I did this sort of on a lark as in a response to, all the fan mail. But then it became like this deeper thing. It wasn't just about landing the perfect kiss. It was about finding the importance of finding out who you are, figuring out who you are and what you want and what gives your, heart its beat. Finding that out before you start looking for someone else to fulfill your, emotional fantasies.
Right. So, my next question for you is, I guess, kind of in a similar area. Do you think there is such thing as the Crimson Kiss? Or does, yeah,
Well, of course there is. There has to be, right? We live
right,
in a world of hope and romance. Um, I I would say that a crimson kiss would be available to those who really felt something for each other. And like Evangeline, she goes out and tries to land the perfect kiss. So it's a comedy of kissing errors, really is what this book is. But she's looking for something that's not actually found in the lips of someone that she doesn't actually care that much for. So I think a crimson kiss is something that happens when you have that, that emotion for somebody else and you then feel you know feel okay, how do we talk about this? You feel different, you feel more. So it's funny that so when that book first came out in hardcover, it had this Pepto-Bismol pink cover. It was pink, and it has a pair of red lips on it. Confessions of a Serial Kisser, and it
right.
sounds so racy, and it sounds so girly.
Hmm.
But so when I went on tour for it, I would take off the cover. I said, boys, I know you do not want to read, you're not going to be caught dead with this book. But if you take the cover off, because underneath the boards were black. So I said, if
Mm.
you take the covers off, you got the little black book of what not to do in kissing a girl. So, and I've had librarians tell me that they've said that to their, and it gets checked out by boys too. So I'm delighted that you've read it and that that's your take on it. I'm glad you liked it.
Thank you. Yeah, and I hadn't even thought of it about bleh. I hadn't even thought about it that way. Like it could be sort of a guide to kissing, I
Yes.
guess.
Well, it's a guide on do
And
not
what
go
not to do.
there.
Yeah.
Do not do that.
I don't do this, don't do that.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about what's to come. What books are in your future for writing? So one of my favorite games, or I guess some people call it a game, some people call it a sport, it's chess. And I
Yeah.
started playing when I was in second grade. I'm enrolled in a chess club in my school, and I was sort of excited to discover that you have a book coming out this year titled The Steps. It's
Yes.
being described as a young adult thriller inspired by Karen McManus meets The Queen's Gambit.
Yes.
I love The Queen's Gambit, fantastic show, and I think it's a book. So I mean, a kind of a two-in-one sort of thing. Great show, hopefully a great
Right.
book.
So originally it was a
Yeah,
book. Right.
yeah. All right, so I'll have to check that out. My to be read list is already growing from this interview. So I'm just really excited for the steps. So can you talk about it without giving away any spoilers?
Yes. Alive. I'm so excited for this book. It is a thriller, which to me makes it just the page turning so quick. But I really love the main character. Her name's Ruby Vossen. I
Mm,
really love Ruby. If Ruby's in a bad situation because she's had three big losses in her life in the last few years, she's had a personal loss, and that was the death of her mother.
mm,
Um, she's had like another familial loss, which was her father and uncle started warring, so she was no longer allowed to see her best friend, which is also her cousin. They grew up together on this estate where her grandmother is, oh, she's so manipulative. The manipulative grandmother in the mansion on the hill.
mm,
So anyway, she grows up in this with this cousin, and now she can't. And they did everything together. And now it's to the point where the dads are so upset that she has to go to a different school. She's like, she's ripped away from everything that was of comfort to her. And in the consequence, the third loss is her social circle is all gone. So she's devastated. She becomes sort of a recluse. She becomes very little sullen, and
mm,
she's just hurt by everything that's happened. And then her dad goes off and remarries someone,
mm,
and in comes the stepmother, the stepbrother, and the stepsister. And they, she, Ruby fears that they are out to get rid of her because that the inheritance, the way it would go,
mhm,
would require her not to be in the picture anymore. So anyway, she's sure somebody is out to kill her in the middle of all this other emotional stuff that's going on. And I don't think I gave anything away. I did get my ARCs the other day.
Ooh,
I got
exciting.
so can you see the stuff?
Yay, yeah, you can see it.
Okay. Oh, I love it. I love the whole purple of it. So
Love the
I'm
cover.
I'm I'm very excited. So that's coming out in fall.
Awesome. I cannot wait. And everybody watching, I bet you can't wait either. I bet you're just as excited as I am. Check it out. And now, sadly, but also I guess kind of hopefully, we have, like, hopefully in a sense, I'm curious to see your answer. We have reached the final question of the interview. The question I've asked every single person I've ever interviewed, no pressure. If you could be or meet any literary character, it could be your favorite author or your favorite book character, fictional or real, who would it be and why?
Oh, I think hands down, I would have want to spend time with Sammy Keys. So I
Mm,
wrote 18 books in the Sammy Keys mysteries. When you've written 18 books about a character, they feel very real to you. And she's oh my gosh. And when I wrote the final installment in that series, I just cried my eyes out. Because like I said, I have a lot of boys. I've got a lot of boys. And so I have two sons, never had a daughter, would have loved a daughter, had to make up my own daughter. Which would make me Lady Lana, which, if you know anything about the series, you do not want to be called Lady Lana. But
Mhm.
regardless, I digress. I would love to go out skateboarding with Sammy Keys. That would just be a dream come true.
That would be so much fun. That is a great answer. So, Wendelin, thank you so much for joining me today on E-Train Talks and for sharing your incredible insights into the world of writing and storytelling. It's been such a pleasure to dive into your journey and learn more about the creative process behind your books. So, your work, it has touched so many readers in their hearts and their minds. You've opened minds, you've opened hearts, and I'm sure today's conversation will inspire even more people to check out your books. Everybody watching, you better check out her books. They're amazing. You're going to love them. You will not regret it. So if you haven't already, be sure to check out Wendelin's website. And that's where you'll find more information about all of her books. I don't have every single one here. I don't think I'd be able to fit 18 books in one series on the desk. So thank you again, Wendelin. And
Thank you for
oh,
having me. It's been very nice
yeah.
talking with you. I appreciate it.
It's been great talking to you as well. And everybody, if you're curious about the process of actually how a movie gets filmed, an adaptation of a book, Wendelin Van Draanen, her website, actually has a lot of information about the behind the scenes of the filming of Flipped. So go check that out. And thank you again, Wendelin. I wish we could go on and on. And yeah, I just loved talking with you. I've learned so much from you.
Thanks. Really appreciate it. It was fun.
It was. Stay safe, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.